But the further in the past it gets, the less reliable of a predictor it is. That's why after 7 years, it's just like worthless. Thank heavens, right? Because 20 years ago or 25 years ago, my credit activity behavior was awful.
And now.
Aye, aye. I'm the captain now.
Coming to you from the K2 Studios in San Diego, California.
This sounds great. You sound amazing.
I always sound amazing.
It's the world famous
Everybody's hitting off like BFFs.
Kris and Kristine Show.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? How are you doing today? Thank you so much for listening, and I am Kris.
And I'm Kristine, and welcome to episode 134 of the Kris and Kristine Show. Do-do-do-do.
Happy Sunday, and it's also Father's Day today, so happy Father's Day to all the great dads out there.
Yes, happy Father's Day to everybody except for Kris.
Wait a second. Time out.
Because I've already said it to you 17 times, so you don't get it one more time. Because
come on.
Father's Day, you always make it all about you. And I mean, I know it's Father's Day.
I don't remember this come Mother's Day.
Yeah, well, you didn't remember Mother's Day. But on Father's Day, you didn't remember Mother's Day. I actually had to, purchase my own present and all of that. On Father's Day, it's like, so what are we doing today? And I'm like, well, I guess I'm making you breakfast. And you're like, okay.
It was delicious.
And then at dinner, I made this beautiful dinner and we sat down and you were like, oh, where's the bacon wrapped asparagus? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to make that. But I made the fruit salad, the broccoli salad, the white rice, the garlic bread, the New York steaks.
Wow.
We even baked you a cake. But then I was like, oh, let me get up and I'll make it right now. And because Father's Day is all about you.
Yeah.
Because you make it all about you, you don't remember any other fathers on Father's Day.
Wait a second.
Did you text my dad?
No.
Nope, you didn't. Did you buy your dad a present?
Working on it.
No, it's Father's Day today. It's all about Kris show. So how does that make you feel?
Very special. Thank you very much.
You like to be on a pedestal every day.
No, I do not every single day. Only on Father's Day.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Because I'm like the ultimate dad. I'm like the galaxy's best dad ever.
I'm so glad that you are so confident in yourself. If anybody was to ever question whether or not you had good self-confidence, they would just need to have a 2-minute conversation with you.
Well, thank you very much for pointing that out.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I think that you got the world's cockiest dad award today.
The trophy sitting behind me right now, along with all my gazillion.
It wouldn't be behind you because nothing gets behind you.
What's that mean?
Super cocky father.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, happy Father's Day.
Well, thank you.
To everybody else out there.
No. Not me. Gosh.
Happy Father's Day.
Oh, thanks, babe. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me, At being the wonderful dad that I am, I got to do a little speech I prepared for it. Let's see here.
Okay, when you say that, being the wonderful dad that I am, is it do you really believe that you're a good dad? Because you are a good dad, but do you believe it, or do you say that to try and get people to affirm you, to make you feel like you're a good dad? Because you are a good dad.
Well, thanks. First off, thank you so much for saying that. And I also do believe that I am, but there's moments when you have your slip-ups, I guess, so to speak, where you don't feel like you are the world's greatest dad,
Well, you don't always have to be the world's greatest. You just have to be the world's greatest to your kids.
That's correct. I guess it kind of look at like this. Are my kids in juvenile hall right now? No.
But even if they were, that's not a reflection on you as a parent.
I thought it was.
No, it wasn't.
If you're...
It's about kids making choices. So no, we're not going to shame parents out there that have kids that have made bad choices. But I mean, don't assess your value for your kids based off of their decisions.
Okay.
So do you feel like you're a good dad?
Yes, I do. Yes,
okay.
I do.
Good. And, you don't have to have criteria for that. You just need to know you're a good dad, because so many people are like, well, I'm a good dad because, I go to my kids' games or I put a roof over their head. You don't have to have reasons, honey. You just are. By showing up for your kids, you are.
There you go. Showing up for the kids and delivering the best you can for your kids at any given time is the best way to do it. And remember the time a few weeks ago when I was helping Mason out in the bathroom when he wasn't feeling very well? Dad of the Year award. I got a star for that, by the way. I think.
You mean when you left him on the bathroom floor and closed the door on him because you were about to throw up?
You know what? That would be... Yes. Don't forget the flush
But
toilet.
you got the number one, you got the good old college try award. Like, you gave it a shot.
That is more than, speaking of college, if we were in college right now at a frat house and that happened, you know what would happen to the person in the bathroom that was passed out, hung over the toilet? Sharpie time. You know what I'm saying? Sharpie all over their face, Sharpie all over themselves.
What are you talking about? Have you even lived in a frat house?
And you'd post that on social media and it'd go
oh my
viral.
gosh, that's like every movie you've ever watched. That's not real life.
Google frat party pictures and you will
No, don't. This is a family-friendly podcast.
or even drunk party pictures from like frat houses and stuff.
Negative.
And the funniest ones are when people are like passed over like on the toilet and somehow I don't know how they do this, but they stack bottles or beer cans on their head in like a tower.
Is this like something that you Google in the evening?
And they have Sharpies all over themselves. You know what's funny? It does not discriminate. It could be girls or boys. I've seen crazy pictures from both.
But back to Father's Day, because this is what we were talking about.
Back to that, baby. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was asking you honestly, do you really truly believe that you're a good father?
Honestly, yes, I do.
Good. I'm glad you do. And for all of you fathers out there, we want to affirm you. You don't have to have X amount of things to make you a good father. You know, you don't have to list all of these different things. Just the fact that you show up for your kids is enough. You know, it's really funny because I was looking on social media today, hun, and I was looking at all of these, like my friends that were posting like, my dad is the best dad in the world. And I was like thinking, well, they can't all be the best dad in the world, but they can be the best dad in the world to their kid. And that's what's most important. It's like your children should feel like you're the best dad in the world.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to be ever since they were born. You know, I remember I was always taking care of the diapers and I was changing them and taking them places. And I would take Mason to places when Jacob was in pre-K or even kindergarten because Mason was too young to go in school, you know. So I drop off Jacob at school. I walk him to the classroom, meet the teacher. We hang out. He showed me his friends and where he sat and all that stuff. And then I would take Mason and we'd go do something fun, like we go to the park or to the beach or SeaWorld or something. And then when I go pick up Jacob in the day, in the afternoon,
He would be mad.
Jacob would be, he'd be mad. He'd be like, so what do you and Mason go do all day today then? I said, well, we went to the park or something. Well, I was stuck in class all day. You went to do something fun with Mason. So Jacob started getting a little jealous, I think, because of that stuff. But then Mason started going to school too. So they both had to suffer, I guess, at that point. So
Suffer?
Then I started taking him after school. When I pick him up from school, I would take him over to the frozen yogurt place. I call it Froyo. And I would get them Froyo after
And you
school.
still do that quite often on Mondays.
It's been a while since I've been over there. I think since we moved, because now that we live closer to the school and further away from the Froyo, it's like going out of your way to the
You still
Froyo.
go every other week. You go to Menchie's.
Yeah, sometimes. I do love it over there.
You
know?
do. You act like you don't. You do. I keep track.
And now the kids, I used to actually pile up their own Froyos for them. Now that I let them do it themselves, it's all soft serve, do it yourself kind of place. But now they like to load and pile up all the goodies. They're talking M&Ms, Oreos, syrup, cherries, strawberries. Yeah. They just pile it all on. And they charge you by the weight over there. So you don't have to get a credit card out. After you get these kids over there, get their Froyo. It used to be cheaper back in the day when they get to the small little
Back in the day. Well, here in the city where we live, there's actually this place that's called Yogurt Mill. And Yogurt Mill is different from like the by the weight kind of frozen yogurt places. Yogurt Mill, first of all, they serve all of their frozen yogurt in old school styrofoam cups, which we love because it keeps it colder a lot longer. But second of all, for like $4, you can get this massive portion of frozen yogurt. And you know, Kris, you know what I'm talking about. They have that really mega cup. It's like a 32-ounce size cup.
Like a big gulp cup size.
Yeah, it's basically like a big gulp, but it's made out of styrofoam. And you can get that full of frozen yogurt, and it's only like $7, and you can get like a topping or two, and it's still like only $8 or $9 versus going to like a Menchie's or something like that. And you get like the little tiny frozen yogurt container, and it's like, you know, $15 or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But we love to go to Yogurt Mill because it's just, well, it's super fun, but they only take cash. But anyways, we didn't do that today. Instead of that, for our dessert, after we're done podcasting, your little Jacob made you a cake.
He did?
He did. I taught him how to make a swirl cake with yellow cake and like a fudgy chocolate.
Ooh,
and then I
sounds
made
good.
a frosting out of like Hershey's powder buttercream. So
Look at that.
I don't know if the frosting's so good. I followed the recipe on the container, but you know, it's all about the effort, right?
You know, Kristine over here, lovely wife, and she can bake a cake too, you know, on Father's Day.
On Father's Day, you're right. And I made you lots of food today.
Oh, thank you so much. It was delicious.
Awesome.
So, but enough about me and Father's Day. Back to you, baby doll. What exciting new things have happened to you in your last week?
Well, a couple of exciting things. So first of all, I am, of course, going back to work for the next fiscal year at my regular full-time job. I got my contract, which was awesome. I always love it when I get my new contract, and just really proud of, you know, looking back at my career over the last 18 years and being like, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. And I remember the first contract that I got, it was like way tiny compared where I'm at right now. And it's just, you know, looking at that new contract and looking back over that 18 years of my career, I just feel really proud of the hard work. But then the other exciting news is, and this is news for people that are out there that might have school loans and work for any kind of public entity, nonprofit or public education or anything like that, is there's this program called the Public Service Loan Forgiveness through the U.S. It's through the federal government. And it's a loan forgiveness program. And typically, it has all of these rules that you have to follow to be able to get your loans forgiven. It's like you get into the program, you have to work for 10 years and make 10 years of payments on your loans. And then after that, they'll forgive your loans. But because of COVID and all of, you know, everything that's been happening with the economy, they changed the rules.
Okay, was it now?
It's hugely different. So what it is because like I just finished my doctorate and I was going to like sign up for the program, but then I would have to pay for 10 years to be able to get the rest of a portion of my loans forgiven, because not all of the loans qualify for the program. However, because I already had paid for 10 years to pay off my undergrad and most of my master's, they're now saying you can enter the program now. They'll give you the 10 years of credit for your work that you've already worked for public education or public entities and the 10 years you've already paid, and they'll forgive whatever that eligible loan debt is that you've just accrued.
No way.
So for me, I'm just praying that I can get all of the paperwork done. I might have to fly up to Fresno to get a couple of signatures to validate that I had worked for Fresno Unified, and then I have to get the one from my employer now. But if I can get everything in before October, then it looks like about 60 to 70% of my loans will be forgiven.
That's all loans?
Well, 60 to 70% of my loans qualify, because what happened is like, okay, so they've done all of these really different things to like help people out. And it's like you have 3 or 4 different types of school loans that you can get. One is called FFELP, FELP. Another one is a direct, they call it like a direct subsidized loan. It means like the government is paying the interest on your loan while you're in school. The other one is like a direct graduate loan. Well, the direct subsidized loan and the FELP loans, you can get them consolidated through the federal government into one payment. Then that whole payment qualifies for forgiveness.
No way. Look at that. It's working the system, babe. I love it.
Well, I mean, it would be amazing because just the payment on that stuff alone.
Oh, I didn't want to hear it. What is it?
$1,800 a month.
Whoa. 18. That's
and
like,
they could forgive
wow.
the whole thing.
No way.
Potentially. That whole payment.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that.
I know. So I'm just, and this is for anybody out there that might be like facing student loan debt. I mean, for me, I had a very expensive doctoral program. It's definitely paying its way with the different opportunities that I've been getting. But that was really exciting news. So I'm working really hard to try and get all that paperwork in because I would really love that. I mean, that would be such a huge gift. And, there might be people out there that are like, why are you getting your loans forgiven? Da, 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 da. But you've got to remember, I've worked 18 years at the very beginning of my career, very low wages, just because I was really passionate about teaching, giving lots of different hours to work with kids. And it's like, okay, I'm okay with getting my loans forgiven with all that I've given to public education. I feel like it's well earned.
Do they have something like that with the GI Bill?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
But you don't have to take out loans with the GI Bill. It's just you get an allotment at the very beginning. And it's like after 4 years of service, then you get this amount of money that you can use towards education.
But you can't only use it towards education. Nothing else, right?
Living expenses associated with education, like reasonable living expenses,
Right.
but it has to be used for you or a direct family member.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That is also beneficial too for those who have served, and thank you for your service.
Right, absolutely. And so it's rare that you get a situation like this where the government says, okay, we're going to change the rules and make it easier for you to take advantage of this program. And so that was really exciting news. But then the other very big news is...
Wait, there's more? That wasn't the biggest thing?
Yes, but wait, there's more. Kristine Smith Designs Studios is officially finished.
No way.
Yes, it is. And
Oh, wow. It looks amazing, babe.
it does look amazing. And the painter came back to do some touching up because some of the paint had kind of buckled with the heat. It was just way too hot. And we were talking about it today that the room was closed off and it was trying to make it dry way too fast, which caused it to crack. So he came back and fixed all of it. And you and I got our first little bits of furniture for in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's getting so cute.
Nice little trip over to the Home Depot, which is it's a store that you buy home goods for.
Oh my gosh, everybody that's listening knows what Home Depot is.
Well, maybe not. Maybe you live in a different country. You never know.
They have them in other countries.
They do?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Or what they call like Hut Depot in some other
No,
countries? Or
what? Home Depot, don't just watch yourself now. Don't be stereotyping.
Igloo Depot or
Oh my gosh, that's so stereotypical and not appropriate. You're such a dingbat.
Okay.
So yeah, we went to Home Depot. We got these really cool workbenches and they're just going to be fantastic. And I can't wait until you put the shelves together for my cooler.
Oh yeah, we got because Kristine also not only has the workspace for her office and for her design studio, we also have a full-on built-in walk-in cooler, which is about 6 feet by 8 feet, correct? Something like that.
Totally.
Now it's tall by about 10, 12 feet tall, maybe? 10
I don't know if it's that tall, but it has a good amount of space.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
10.
like 8 feet inside.
Right, which gives you that height.
Yep.
So we're going to use the height to our advantage by putting in
height.
building in shelves. That
I
we
like
can
how you say height. Height. It's like karate.
That's right. And we're going to put the shelves in there that we're going to put baskets and your flower stuff.
Baskets? What are you talking
Aren't they
about?
the baskets you said you can put on there?
No, arrangements.
That's what I said, arrangements.
Baskets.
Don't they come baskets?
No.
I am the wedding helper coordinator on here, you know.
Wedding helper coordinator? You mean logistics manager?
That too.
You're just coming up with names for yourself tonight.
Yeah, where are my business cards at, by the way?
You don't get any
Yes, I
because we
do.
don't use business cards. Only I do.
What about a t-shirt maybe?
I could get you a t-shirt.
Like a base. It's like one of those basic t-shirts
it's
that like
gonna say
all
helper boy on the back.
It's like those basic t-shirts you see like at job sites. They have like the bright pink or the bright orange or whatever color, and then the black lettering. It says Kristine Smith Designs,
No.
helper boy.
No, you'll be in black with white writing. And
Okay.
there'll be like crew. That'll say like staff. You know, like those ones when you go
Yes.
to like the concert where it says like staff in white
That's
letters.
right. Or
You
the
could do
red
that one.
the red jacket that's got like the white lettering on it. It says like security.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Well, I'm very excited that construction is done and that we can get our backyard back into shape. Also, the other very, very exciting thing for me is that Ezekiel is flying down tomorrow to start his first leg of his summer break with us. He'll be here for about 10 days.
Whoa, 10 whole days.
Yeah,
here, huh?
then he'll go back to his dad's just over the 4th of July weekend, and then he'll be back with us starting the 6th of July until the 19th of July.
Oh, hey, speaking of that, do
Mm-hmm.
you want to mention to everybody what our new fantastic summer plans are?
Oh my gosh, that is another huge thing that happened this week, right?
Do you want to save it till after the interview?
No, we can talk about it now.
Okay.
So, where do you want to start off with this story, Mr. Christopher?
Okay, so here's what happened. All right, so
Are you going to tell the full story or are you going to tell the Kris looks like a hero story?
baby, what story do you think I would tell?
I think that you need to tell the truth. First of all, the cruise got canceled because who procrastinated?
Okay, the reason why the cruise got canceled, we actually had the cruise paid for. Everything was good to go. Kristine was looking at boarding procedures, all the fine details. Kristine reads all that stuff. Most of us don't read that stuff, but Kristine reads all that stuff.
All that stuff.
So she's looking at the requirements to get on the cruise ship, and there was a section about COVID requirements for your COVID vaccine proof of vaccination you have to prove before you get to the ship.
First of all, I knew that anybody over 12 needed to be vaccinated. So we had planned for that. We were all going to be we were going to have both shots before we cruised. Now you can go, Kris.
So my oldest son, Jacob, is 12 years old. He just turned 12 this year. And if you may have not known that the COVID vaccination requirements have been fluctuating ever since they put them out.
Oh, you're trying to justify your decision. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. So some places said you had to have them. Some places said you didn't. Some places said you just needed a proof of negative COVID test, and so on and so forth.
But the cruise ships have consistently said you needed to have a vaccine. They've told us for over a year, and I've been asking you for 9 months, and I've been telling you and the boy's mother, and your mom has been telling you to get him vaccinated.
So honestly, I just procrastinated getting Jacob vaccinated in time, or at all for that matter. And now we don't have any time to actually get him vaccinated before the cruise ship sails. So plan B now is we have to call the cruise ship to actually see what we can do. Kristine did call the cruise ship, and the cruise ship said, well, no matter what, even with an exemption, we try to get an exemption.
There wouldn't be any exemption because it wasn't like medically necessary. I mean, the bottom line is, it's very frustrating because I've done all of this work to prepare for it, and I asked multiple times between you and their mom to get him vaccinated, and it didn't happen. And so I took matters into my own hands, and I made his appointment myself, and I was getting him in, and I thought that I had everything handled, but I thought that there only needed to be like 2 weeks in between the first and the second shot. But it ends up that there had to be 3 weeks in between the first and the second shot. And then he had to have 14 days for the second shot to take effect before boarding. And he would have only had 7, and they wouldn't wiggle with that. And so, there was no exemptions that were given. And so, we found that out last weekend, but we had to wait until Monday to like get all the answers from the different departments. And so the kids were at school when you and I were going through all of that. And I was angry. Quite honestly, I was so angry because I'd paid for everything myself out of my savings and out of my business. And, just to be really honest, it was really hard because it's like thousands of dollars that I'd set aside. And it was like, I don't know. It was just a really hard situation. And so what were the options that you gave me?
Well, one option I gave you is that I don't have to cruise. I can stay home with Jacob, and Jacob and I can stay home for the entire week.
And that was just like it was so frustrating because it's like we're doing this as a family, and then it leaves me as cruising without you, my best friend, and without one of our kids. And then I'm on full-time mom duty for, 7 days plus traveling with 2 kids by myself, which is not what I signed up for, which isn't fair. No matter which way you cut this wasn't going to be fair for me, right?
No, it's not fair.
It was, these were the options you gave. None of them I agreed to. You stay behind and stay with Jacob. You leave Jacob behind, or what was the other one you said? Like that we just stay in Miami for the entire 9 days.
Correct. What's wrong with that?
And let's drive to the Keys and let's just like drive around.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
Yes. Let's fly our kids all the way across the country and let's just,
hang out in a hotel.
Hang out in the hotel and at a beach. And, that might have been okay.
But don't forget, we also looked into going to Hawaii, shifting the entire gear and switching plans to Hawaii.
That was after you. Okay. So you suggested the Miami thing. And so then we started to brainstorm and we're like, okay, if we can't go on the cruise, and finally I talked to a really nice guy. He was able to get us a full refund for the cruise. It hasn't happened yet under the vaccination requirements. And so we were like, okay, we're going to get this money back. Let's just fly to the Bahamas. We're going to fly to the Bahamas. We'll go stay at the Atlantis Resort, which is where the kids really wanted to go. And it's like staying at a water park for a couple of days. And yes, we're going to pay more for accommodations. And then we're going to have to pay for all of our meals. But we're still making good on our promise. And then, like you said, I read all the fine print. So before we committed, I was like, okay, all the kids have passports. The little ones have passport cards. Ezekiel, you and I have passport books. And I was like, oh, well, the passport cards work for the cruise, but let me make sure that they work for flying. And guess what?
What?
They don't.
Oh,
man. So we were like, back to the drawing board. And so then we went back to your idea of Miami. And then I was upstairs and you were kind of like doing stuff around the house. And I was like, you know what? I wonder how far it is from Miami to Orlando. And we already were renting a rental car for the first couple of days, a minivan. And then I was like, okay, it's like 3.5 hours or 3 hours and 45 minutes from Miami to Orlando. And then I was like, hey, Kris, what if we pivot and we take the boys to Disney World? And what did you say?
I said, absolutely. Let's do that.
Yeah. And so long story short, we made a pivot. And I know this might sound like hashtag first world problems.
It totally is.
It totally is. It was just very frustrating because, here we've gone through so much with COVID and we thought, oh, finally, we're going to be able to have this international trip for the first time as a family. We had our first Hawaii trip canceled for the wedding. We've had all of these other, thorns put in the way of all of our travel plans over the last few years. We were like, finally, the cruise. But, when we sat down on that morning after we had to cancel everything, I think I said something to you like, I think this is actually going to work out better, whatever we figure out. First of all, there's a reason. Maybe there's going to be a COVID outbreak on that cruise ship, heaven forbid.
Or what if it's an iceberg?
Yeah. Or, there could be a lot of different things that happen or, just a lot of different things. And neither I or any of our 3 boys have gone to Disney World. You went when you were younger.
Right. It's way different now. When I went, they only had Magic Kingdom and Epcot. Now they've got like a bunch of stuff.
And so when we were so nervous to tell the boys, huh?
Oh, yeah. You were nervous telling Ezekiel because he was so set on the Bahamas.
Yeah. And I just didn't want to let him down. But when I told him, he was overjoyed. And he said to me, he's even more excited to go to the Bahamas. To go to Disney World than he was to go on the cruise because he's always wanted to go to Disney World. And then the littles were so excited. And I think, cross our fingers, I think it's going to be a great trip.
I hope so. I know it's going to be a great trip.
Me too.
Exactly 1 month away from now, we're going to Florida, flying to Miami.
No, 3 weeks. We're on the countdown. It's under 3 weeks now.
That's right.
Can you believe that?
Let's check that out.
But, it's definitely taken us negotiating finances and, making sure that we were being really smart about how we were spending our money because we'd already paid for one trip and having to save up and change resources around and make sure that we weren't going into debt. And so it definitely was a little bit of a tense conversation at times, right?
Absolutely. And money in itself is always a tense conversation. I think money is one of the reasons why families like divorce. I've heard it's one of the big reasons. That and cheating, I would say.
Yeah.
Two big ones.
Well, money definitely can cause a rift in a relationship. And here to talk about money with us is this week's fantastic guest. And he's going to be back with us right after this. If you love music and podcasting, now you can have both. Introducing the brand new K2 radio station, available 24/7 on the Live 365 app for free.
Specializing in rock and alternative music, we're talking bands like Coldplay, Nirvana, Muse, Imagine Dragons, and yes, even the Rolling Stones. They have all stopped by to drop off songs, and we even have brand new popular tracks added every single day.
Also on the free K2 radio station, we are including podcasting. Get the best of both worlds. Download the free Live 365 app or listen online at live365.com and type in K2 Radio. And welcome back, everybody. Today we have another fantastic VIP guest who's going to be talking about Kris's favorite subject, money, money, money.
What?
We have joined with us personal finance expert, Todd Christensen.
Thank you.
Hey, Todd. Thanks for being here today. The crowd was going nuts for you, man.
It was, standard par for the course, I suppose.
Yeah. Anytime.
You guys got some great guests.
Yeah. Anytime we have a money expert, people get very excited about it. You're going to help us solve all our problems.
I heard you're giving out free $100 bills, right?
Well, yeah. Let me. I had a $500 bill here earlier, but I don't know if you want to trust that.
Yeah.
Went to the last podcast host that interviewed you. Sorry, we got in too late.
Yeah, right.
Well, Todd, thanks so much for being here with us today. Where are you joining us from?
I'm coming to you from beautiful northeast Pennsylvania near Scranton.
Oh, where The Office was filmed.
That's it.
Well,
That's
not
it.
really filmed there.
Filmed, but it's
Michael
set, yeah.
was just down the road. Well, they filmed Southern California, but I have been to the restaurant that was featured in there.
Oh,
Was there really a restaurant featured? I thought it was all filmed here in LA.
Yeah, there was some restaurant places here that they mentioned, and I don't know. I don't know if it was actually in there, but
I love that show.
It's a good seafood place.
It's so funny. Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. It's the best.
Makes me want to work there, But I always kind of like how when I see the shots of them driving around the city, I'm like, oh, that's so like LA. It's so obvious it's LA.
Yep.
Because it wouldn't be, isn't it in Pennsylvania? Isn't there like a lot of more greenery? And it's
very green. That's my wife and I moved out here just last summer, and that's one of the reasons why we moved here. It's green, rolling hills, beautiful valley here.
And where did you relocate from?
Idaho. My wife was raised in Idaho. I'd lived there for 20 years, so near Boise.
Were you a farmer or what?
No potatoes. No, I've been with the same nonprofit for 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay. Now, trivia question. As you lived near Boise or in Boise, I can't remember what the university is, but there's a university there that I thought had a blue football field.
You thought right.
Yes. What is it? Which university?
The Boise State Broncos.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, it's the largest. I think it's the largest state one in the state, University of Idaho. But yeah, it's blue. It's been blue for decades and decades, and that's just part of the school colors.
Well, I went to Fresno State University for my undergrad, and I remember that we would always play Boise State, and anytime that the games were televised, I was like, would they have blue turf, or is that like grass that they're spray painting blue?
Or you did just color in TV.
Yeah, it's artificial turf. It's they just replaced it, I think, about 3 years ago. But yeah, it's, you hear all the time, it's unfair. It's unfair that there are blue jerseys and on blue turf, and then you turn it around like,
horrible
okay,
to watch on TV. Then I would think.
Well, you get adjusted to it, but then you ask, what about all the green teams that play on natural turf? That seems unfair, then, right?
Oh, very true.
I guess like the Jets, maybe.
Do they wear green jerseys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
that would be harder because
the Jets could use anything that's unfair if it's slanted in their favor.
Well, they do share the stadium with the Giants, so who knows?
Well, we do appreciate you being here on the line with us today. We're super excited to chat with you. We've both been doing some research because, as I mentioned, Kris likes to talk about money.
I don't like to talk. I like to watch like a lot of Dave Ramsey YouTube videos, I guess.
Honey,
pop up.
You talk about money nonstop.
But no, I just like, well, it's a cool video and stuff. But with Dave Ramsey, I did notice that he always has like the same like philosophies, just like repackaged for each video.
Oh.
It's like the same like 5 things or whatever. Maybe it's less than that. I don't know.
Well,
He's
Todd,
got his core down.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were reading that you are a personal finance expert. How did you get started into that line of work?
Oh, wow. I have a passion for it, mostly because when I was younger, I really screwed up with money, and I'd like to help people avoid some of the mistakes I make, like maxing out my first credit card in 36 hours. Just,
what? Okay, so wait, stop. Hold the press. 36 hours? Wait. Now, when you get your first credit card, is it like the one that has like a really low limit, like $300? I can see
I wish. This was a few years ago. So this was back in the late 80s.
Okay.
Mid to late 80s. And it was $2,000 credit limit. So it's the equivalent now of about $5,000, maybe $6,000.
Seems about normal, yeah.
But in 36 hours, you maxed it out?
I recall getting it on one Wednesday morning or some weekday morning, and it may have been faster than that. It may have been that night, but I give myself the benefit of the doubt. But I went to a local, like a guitar store, and bought a professional keyboard. I had dreams of hitting the road and being like Jagger. I don't know. Yeah. But that didn't work out.
And the keyboard was about $2,000?
Yeah. Well, the keyboard itself was about $1,800.
Yeah.
Well, $1,600, then I think a couple $100 for each of the 2 studio monitors, another $50, $60, $100 for the stand.
Yeah, I know.
All the extras. And it was right about $2,000. And so I thought it was a great deal because when I got my first credit card statement, $50. I'm like, sweet.
Oh, yeah, minimum
all
payment.
All this for $50 a month. And so I sent off, this was even before the internet. That's how long ago it was. I sent off a check. And about 3 weeks later, I made sure that the check had cleared. Mm-hmm. And I went shopping. I thought, okay, I can go get some groceries because I was a college student.
Right.
And I bought I had like $25 worth of food in the grocery cart, and my card was declined. I was so mad.
Oh no!
Like they cashed my $50 check. I can't even now. They're not letting me buy $20 worth of food. And I called so irate, and I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And they said, "Well, Mr. Christensen, and if you're 20 years old, 21, 22 years old, and they're calling you Mr., you're like, okay, maybe I did something wrong." And they said all but about $5 of that payment went to just covering the interest.
Oh, right.
So I had a quick lesson in interest.
How much was the interest on that first credit card? Do you remember?
It was. I would not be surprised if it. In my mind, I think it was 1990 or 19.9.
Wow.
That's not,
but if it was 25,
bad.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Wow.
How high do they get to those credit card interest? What's like? Are they cap on those?
No, unfortunately.
Ooh.
The average right now, as we talk, it's about 16.5%, 17%. It's pretty high over the last 20 years I've been following this. It ranges anywhere from it's been ranging between 14 and 16, but we're the last 6 or 7 months been near 17. But that's the standard if you have good interest, if you have good credit. But if you have not so stellar credit, you're going to probably be in the 20%, 25%. But you get store cards that are in 25, 30% range.
Right.
Those store cards are higher than regular credit cards?
Yeah, they are, because they have lower standards, qualification standards. So they're taking a bigger risk, and risk and reward are always related. And so if they're going to take a bigger risk, they're going to charge more for their reward.
So here you were, this young 20-something, you got your first credit card and you maxed it out. But how did you go from there to now being part of this nonprofit that is focusing on financial fitness or being money fit?
Yeah. Well, in the early 2000s, I was starting my own. I took over a business from a mentor of mine that I had been working for, and It was a feast or famine type of a business, and my wife and I got married about that time, and I was just at the start of a famine, and it was going to be another 6-7 months before I had anything. And her job was not going great. They were doing a bunch of downsizing and not hiring, and I said, you know what, let me find something just temporarily, get us through. Because we both came with a 5-year-old.
Oh,
so
wow.
we had 2 kids, and so I just found this surfing the internet, and but after about 3 or 4 weeks, I was thinking, I don't want to give this up. This is going to be just perfect for me.
Now, when you started with the company, were you in a solid financial state, or were you already like struggling with some debt of your own going into this work?
I had paid everything off by then, all my undergrad and my master's student loans. I had refinanced and had been able to pay them off in the early 2000s. My wife had been through a divorce and had a little debt left over from that we were dealing with. But and neither of us had ever owned a home, and that's what we did. Is we went out and got a home while we were engaged. We went and signed the papers and moved in about the same time we got married.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it was.
So you got started with this company thinking that it was just going to be kind of a bridge for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it involved a lot of teaching. They said, hey, can you get some of these personal finance classes into high schools? And I'd always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't ever think teachers could make enough for the lifestyle that I wanted when I was younger. I mean, I'd be happy now, but and so I got to teach. And I mean, it was all the best things about teaching without all the worst things about teaching. And so I got to go in and teach, enjoyed being with the kids, high school, middle school. I even went down to elementary and all the way up to college and beyond adults. But I didn't have to deal with parents, and I didn't have to do any grading. So
Well,
was
that's
ideal.
Well, that's always the best because Kristine's been a teacher in her
Yeah.
past life here.
In my past life, I work in education still, but yeah, being a teacher, there's all of the classroom management and parent issues and all of that. But
so you can imagine,
yeah, but as an economics teacher in high school, I started to do work with personal finance with the kids because it was interesting as seniors in high school. You'd ask them, well, what is it that you want to do for a living? And then what kind of a house or lifestyle do you want? And to see students, even at like 18 years old, having really no concept of money. And, they would be like, oh, well, I want to be a rap music star. And I'm like, okay, well, how's your first album? And they're like, oh, well, I'm, that's down the line. I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do right now? Oh, I'm just going to, be like my mom. I'm going to stay at home. And I'm like, okay. And what kind of lifestyle do you want? And it's like, mansion and all this. I'm like, so what millionaire are you going to marry? And they're like, oh, no, my boyfriend and I. And it's interesting, Kris and I have already started to have conversations with our 3 boys that we share about, what it is they want to do and what kind of lifestyle that they want.
Oh, they all want to be YouTubers, really.
Yeah, YouTubers and rap music stars.
I would ask for years, I'd go in one of the classes that I would teach would be about choosing a career and matching it with your lifestyle. And it was about 2012, 2015, somewhere in that neighborhood, I started hearing, I'm going to be a YouTuber. And it really took off about 2018, 2019, that they would all, I want to be a YouTuber. And I had no idea what they were talking about early on until I saw my own teenage boys or tweeners at that point watching other people play video games.
Right.
Yep.
Like, I don't get that.
Or the opening of toys, unboxing stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what the whole deal is. But I guess, they come back and say, well, do you like to play football or basketball or something like that? And I said, yeah. I said, well, have you ever watched a game? Like, okay. I guess I can understand that.
I guess that makes sense. I didn't think about it like that. So it's like professional something. We're all watching it. It's just the fact that they're getting paid, like the professional athletes are getting paid, but the NFL Network is a little more, I guess, they got the stuff figured out versus like a random YouTube channel.
Much more formalized.
Right, exactly.
That's interesting. So is your work with MoneyFit only at the school level, or do you work with adults?
Yeah, we work with our actually primary client that we work with on our main program, which is a debt management program. That's for adults who are struggling with debt, usually high interest rates, credit cards, medical collections. As far as education goes, I go wherever there is a demand, wherever there is an opportunity. I mean, I've been into businesses, I've been into government agencies, I've been to prison and jail. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
So a prisoner comes to you with debt, like obviously they can't pay it because they're in prison. So what do you start with somebody like that?
That's where I would go in and teach a class on basic spending plans, budgeting, and paycheck management, and how to deal with debt. So, I just talk about some of the basics so that when they are out, they have at least a little empowerment to base their life going forward on.
That makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it, when you look at crime, there's a trigger to an individual entering into a life of crime. And I mean, I'm making an assumption here that it's connected to poverty or lack. And so you have an individual who's lacking something, who out of desperation is trying to figure out how to get it, where if we help empower individuals with the tools to manage their finances, they might not feel so much desperation to make that move that would end them back up in jail or in prison.
Yeah, I think there's that part of it. It feels very Les Miserables, the poverty. A lot of it is related to that, whether it stems from drugs and alcohol or whatever it might be. But and then there's that also aspect where people just want more than what they have. I believe, we do have some income issues in this country, but the vast majority of financial problems are not income problems. They are spending problems.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's ever traveled outside the country to a third world country knows that as humans, we have very few needs. We need food and water, we need some shelter and security, and we need typically some clothing to keep us from frying in the summer and freezing in the winter, sort of thing. Other than that, everything else is a want. But we don't believe that in this country. We think that an iPhone, 31X, whatever is, whatever's out, the latest, is a need, and that we need to have the newest car, the biggest car, the fastest, safest, coolest looking car.
Oh yeah.
And so,
Speaking to my husband, who had to have, the sports car and the fancy truck. However, the sports car's paid off, and the fancy truck has 0% financing. So,
well, I'm assuming that you did not get into that loan right out of high school, right?
Oh,
no, I could not get a loan. My credit was so bad right out of high school, I couldn't even get a loan.
Oh, Kris, you have to tell them the story about the tent sale.
About the car?
The car tent sale, yes.
I want to hear this.
Oh, well, so one of the first cars I bought, or second cars I guess I bought, the first car I bought was my truck. My mom co-signed, so I traded that vehicle in on a tent sale car. And we talk about the high interest rate I had?
Yeah, tell them about it.
Oh, well, these tent sales are very pushy. They would want to just move cars, sell. I think they bought the car for like $12,000, right? Mm-hmm. But of course, the credit was so bad, and they put tons of money down. And even with all that, I think the interest rate was like 25%. And then on top of that, so you
just made the money man choke.
Oh, it hurts my heart.
For a vehicle, I know. So I was paying on that for a while, and eventually I traded that into my other truck, which is another one. So I went from that to a new vehicle with an interest rate of about 12%, 9%, which is better than 25.
Yeah.
And then the next vehicle after that was my other truck, which went to like a 3.9%, which is pretty good.
But the point is, you were desperate.
0%. So it went from 25 to 9 to 3 to 0.
But you were young and desperate, right?
Well, that's the thing too. I always wanted a car, and I could never. My credit was always so bad. I had some credit card debt that I let go, like you were doing, paying the minimum payment, and eventually it went into they shut it off and the collections, and I ain't gonna pay you guys back if you're not giving me my money. I'm not paying you. Then screw you. So that's what I did. I let some credit cards go into the collections, and my credit went really bad. Yeah. And it was hard to get a loan. Like I went to the dealership to get a car, and they would laugh at me after they pulled my report, and it was so embarrassing.
Harsh.
Yeah. But I'm sure that you come across individuals that have had some real trauma and negative experiences as it relates to money and finances. And, being the money savvy man that you are in the line of work that you're in, I'm sure that while you love to work with all clients, that you have an area that you're super passionate about. What is that as it relates to your work?
What I love to talk about most, and what to work with people most, for me, is around one, debt elimination, getting rid of the stress of consumer debt, and two, building that credit rating with a purpose, not just building it because you think you're supposed to build it, but for purposes to help people get into homes, affordable payments for a home, maybe start a business or whatever it might be. But those are the two things that I love doing, and relationships are usually in there too. Having a couple come into the office. Back in the day when people actually came into the office, we always had a box of Kleenex, because money is always going to be very emotional when somebody comes into our office. And I remember one couple coming in, and they were so hesitant. I'd met them. They'd seen been to one of my classes, and they came in and said, "We just want to go over our credit report. We want to buy a home in the next 5 or 10 years, but we know it's going to be awful, and we don't want to look at it, but we need to." And we sat down, pulled their credit report. Almost everything they worried about was no longer there.
Oh, wow.
What do you mean wasn't longer there?
Because negative stuff drops off after 7 years.
Wait a second. It does?
Yeah. Amen to that, right?
Well, now, I thought I showed up on some deep credit reports.
No.
Like deep internet.
like
the Deep Space Nine.
Like the dark web or whatever, I thought that stuff was on there.
No, at 7 years, negative stuff falls off. That's missed payments, collection accounts, any like over limit activity. After 7 years, it's no longer there. Now, are there exceptions where it accidentally or a creditor keeps reporting? Yeah, but you dispute it and you get it removed. But yeah, the good stuff stays on for 10 years. The whole reason there's an expiration date is because the whole point of credit, and this is where a lot of people, we have changed the meaning of consumer credit ratings in this country. We think it's tied to our character. In fact, lenders, and if a lender, I'm going to say if, those lenders who are listening to this show, please take note. Please stop using the word character when it comes to the 4 C's of credit. It has nothing to do with our personal character. We've tied it so much to our character that people feel terrible about themselves. They feel beaten down when they get into medical debt that ends up ruining their credit, or they just make some mistakes. And, that's not what credit is. The purpose of credit ratings are to predict our future credit-related behaviors. That's all it is. That's the whole purpose. It has nothing to do with how hard we're trying, what schools we went to, how popular we are. It's all about how likely are we to make payments as agreed in the future. And the best way we've come up with so far, and there will be a better way someday, but the best way we've come up so far is to look at past behavior.
The credit rating score. Now, which program do you think is the best? There's like a few of them out there.
Is there like
as far as credit scores?
Yeah, there's
Experian
right.
and-
I don't know.
So yeah, there's 2 main credit scores that are generated through our credit reports. The score is kind of like the grade. The report is kind of like the teacher's notebook, right?
Right.
You had that when you were teaching economics. You had it was probably online or on computer at that point. But you guys remember the old green and white lined notebooks that teachers used to have back in the 80s and 90s?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's like the credit report. It has everything that we've ever done with credit in the last 7 to 10 years. But we don't really care about that. I mean, that sounds harsh for all the teachers. We don't care about all that stuff we do every day. We just want the grade at the end of the semester, right?
Right.
And that's what the credit rating or credit score is. So you want that credit score, the higher the score, the more likely we are, it says, to pay our debts as agreed in the future. And it's based on recent past behavior, because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Right.
But the further in the past it gets, the less reliable of a predictor it is. That's why after 7 years, it's just like worthless. Thank heavens, right? Because 20 years ago or 25 years ago, my credit activity behavior was awful. And but we change, fortunately. And that's one of the reasons why the length of time you've used credit is often top 3 credit factors in our score. Because the longer we've had it and used it, the more lessons we've learned, good or bad, and the more likely we are to pay as agreed.
Well, you're sharing some really positive news for me, because Kris and I have been married almost 2 years, but my previous marriage ended 7.5 years ago, and it was finalized like 6.5 years ago with we had to have a short sale on our previous house, and I was left with a mountain of debt from that previous marriage. And so what you're saying, it's filled with a lot of hope for me, because when Kris and I got together, one of the things that it's so funny, it was like, I don't know, Kris, I think it was our second date, right? When you pulled out your Credit Karma app and you were showed me. But I
was proud of it though, because I never had that before.
And it was because we'd already been open and talking about like past traumas and financial traumas that we'd endured in our past relationships. And so he was being super transparent. And I said very honestly to him, I don't want to show you mine because I honestly don't know what it is, because I've still been through the ringer and it was still fresh enough. I mean, we've been together for 4 years now. So it was only, 2.5, 3 years before that I was closing the chapter on that heavy stuff. And so, having that following me has definitely been, you almost feel like you're wearing a scarlet letter when you go in places. And I remember a year ago, or just over a year ago, I went into a car dealership to purchase a new vehicle because I had a Camaro and it only had 4 seats in it, but we're a family of 5. So as we were blending our family, I found the need to get a family vehicle. And I walked into the dealership like so nervous. And it was one of those things, again, because I was thinking it was a reflection on my character. Like, I don't know what you're going to find. You know, I'm a really good person. Here's my paycheck. I make a lot of money.
Please don't judge me.
Yeah, whatever that number is, I went through a really messy divorce. And, you know, I'm feeling like I have to give my entire life story.
Right.
Because so much of our society is dependent on credit scores. I mean, we talk about this a lot in my work in education, is about how credit scores or lack of a credit history impact our historically marginalized populations, individuals of color, because they don't have those doors open to them to even establish credit. And it can be this great divider for people. And it just feels like, why do we even have it?
Yeah.
It's almost like it creates the culture of like the haves and the have-nots. The haves have great credit and the whole world opens to them. And the have-nots have horrible or no credit.
Well, they charge the world and then they become the have-nots.
Right. And then they charge them these super high interest rates, and it kind of continues to be this system of oppression. So how do people break free?
It certainly feels that way. I mean, there are issues with our credit reporting on the credit reporting side. Credit reporting, creditors, it's still optional what they report and to whom they report, or if they report.
Right.
And so that opens up a lot of possibilities for, I guess, passive discrimination, where they will just not report. I don't think there's much active of that going on, but it's just the way it's developed over the years. Yes, there are issues. The credit score is pretty. It is pretty black and white. I mean, it's just looks at whatever is on the credit report. So the problem is, here's the thing. It's, you know, I've worked with a lot of people who have very high incomes and have terrible credit. And I've worked with people who have very modest or meager incomes even and have excellent credit. So
the income doesn't reflect the credit report at all?
There is a correlation, but it's not cause and effect. Absolutely not. I mean, income is not there. There are over 130 factors in the FICO score model, the 8 plus those since 8, and not a single one of them has anything to do with income.
Really interesting. So you can have like a minimum wage job but have like 800 credit score.
Sure. Yeah. It's not about income. It doesn't have anything to do with employment or education. It's just, are you using whatever credit, small as it might be, are you paying it back as agreed and keeping your balances as low as possible? And so, you know, I remember talking with an architect and his wife who was also working, and they were making, in today's dollars, probably $250,000 a year. They were struggling, make ends meet, because their credit was not great. They just sometimes, and it's not uncommon for professionals generally just to think, I'm making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year. I'll just can spend whatever I want. But this is America, you know. Right. You can think about it, you can dream it, you can buy it, and that's kind of the way it works. And people get it way over in their head in debt, and their credit suffers because they can't. If you max out your credit card, that's kind of one of the big no-nos as well. That's going to hurt your credit. Even if you're making your minimum payments on time, which is the number one, by the way, let me just put it out there. Number one thing, as long as you're making your minimum payments on time every month, that's the best thing you can do for your credit. But if you're maxing out your cards, and that's gonna drag down your scores.
What about if the people like who use their credit card but then pay it off each month afterwards? How's that work out for them? Yeah,
generally, I actually what I recommend is, because you want to keep your card active. You don't. There's no score. None of those scores says anything about how many purchases you have to make or how big of purchases the purchases have to be. So anybody who says, well, you have to carry 30% balance or 20%, you have to make these major purchases. You have to buy 25 things. That's all blowing smoke. all you need is one purchase a month and pay it off. I recommend to people, look, have you got your cell phone bill? You can talk all you want, text all you want. It's not going to go up and you're not going to overspend with it. Just put that on your credit card, and on another card, put your Netflix or your Disney Plus or Hulu or whatever. And that's really all you need, is just one purchase a month on an account, and it'll keep it kind of golden.
I like to put my online purchases on credit cards only, because I think because if there's a mistake, the credit card company is usually pretty quick to refund that versus like your bank account.
They can be, yeah. We just had that experience this last spring when we went trip to New York, and we checked out after one day because the hotel was awful. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to mention who it was.
Oh, come on now.
And they charged us for like 4 nights.
What?
And we were only going to stay there for 3. And they said, well, you never checked out. I'm like, we did. And then, but we argued with the credit card, or we disputed with the credit card company. They went back and forth with them, and they came back and said, no, they said it's true. And we argued again and and we finally got it taken care of, because they were adamant.
Wow.
Hotel, they were going to charge us 4 nights. But crazy. Yeah, it does have its benefits, but it also has its drawbacks. I mean, for anybody who uses credit cards for business, it's great. You rack up all those rewards potentially, and it comes with classification of your categorization of your expenses, whenever you get your statement. So it's great for accounting. The downside is when we use plastic, whether it's credit card or debit card or prepaid card, we overspend. We spend, whenever there's a consumer decision to make, we spend on average about 15% more than we would if we used cash.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And it's much worse when you're talking about restaurants. If you go into fast food, it's going to be like 20%. And if you go into a sit-down restaurant, it's closer to 50% more.
No way.
If you take in a credit card versus if you're just taking in cash.
And it's even more than that if you find that the other person's paying.
Yeah, right.
That's your strategy, Kris. Anytime I'm like, babe, I'm buying dinner, he's like, well, I'm going to have a second round of drinks.
So it's surf and turf today.
And what do I tell you every time we go into a restaurant and you pull out your cards to pay? I said, use your debit card. And you're like, well, I'll just put it on the credit card. And I'm like, no, because if you use your debit card, the money is gone. And we don't have to think about it, and we stay tighter on our budget. But your response is what?
Well, I know one of my credit cards has like 4 or 3% cash back return on
Exactly.
restaurants.
He wants the rewards. That's how they rope him in. He is like...
Yep.
But to even make those rewards worthwhile, you have to spend like $1 million, I think, on them to even get your money back.
Okay, now Todd, we're going to switch gears for just a second. We're going to ask you about a couple of money-related topics that we think you have some expertise in to get your input.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah. So first thing that we're going to ask you about are payday loans. Should people do them or not?
Excuse me. I just
almost died there.
Stuck in my throat. Okay. I'm not a fan of payday loans. Say it right up front. Are there good people working in the payday loan industry? I would assume so. But a payday loan fee works out. They advertise it is usually very low end, 15% up to 25%. And so you think, credit cards. I said credit card interest rates are about 15, 16, 17%, right? Mm-hmm. But a payday loan fee is for a loan that's generally 2 weeks. And so if you want to compare apples to apples, you have to extend that 2-week loan into a 52-week loan.
Oh, wow.
So multiply, say, 15% times 26, because that's how many 2-week periods are in a year. And all of a sudden, you're at almost 400% annualized interest.
Right. And they can put that on the paperwork when you do sign, because I've done the payday loan a few times.
I did. Yeah. I did a couple of them right after I got that credit card, I think, early on. But yeah.
Okay, next topic, rent-to-own furniture stores. Should you buy your furniture there?
If you want to pay twice as much for what you're getting as what you can get in a normal store, go ahead. The prices that they advertise are weekly usually. Their monthly payments, they say, oh, get this for this much a month. And we're all used to monthly payments, but they're usually weekly payments.
Right.
And I've had a number of several rent-to-own managers, former rent-to-own managers in some of my class, and they say, yeah, if the payment was due at 12 o'clock and it's not in my office I'm sending somebody out at 11:30, so that at 12:01 they will be taking back the couch or
oh my gosh.
Right. I knew a guy
appliance.
that did that as a living, and it's tough work because you get the door slammed on you, probably shotgun pulled on you. You get all kinds of people that are not going to, I mean, you're taking their stuff. It's like a repossession thing, even though it's not really their stuff. It's the rent-own company's stuff. It's hard work too doing that, but I get what you're saying, and I've actually done the rent-to-own thing. And when I did it, there was a plan where you could pay it off early and they didn't accrue any extra interest or some goofy thing like that. But you had like a 12-month window to do that, and that's what I did for like a wash machine.
Yeah, I used one. Moved once, this was 25 years ago, and the company rented some appliances because they got lost on the rental truck at the time.
Oh wow!
And so that we used that. That's kind of what it made sense for. But generally, I tell people, look, instead of saying, it's only 60% more or 50, it's only instead of doing that, I say, what would it be like to have two of those high definition TVs instead of just one for the same price? And all of a sudden they think, oh, wait a minute, I could have one in each room for what I'm paying. It's just a different way of looking at things because the prices are quite a bit higher. But they have to be because they're taking much of higher of a risk. And again, risk and reward, I don't fault them for that. It's just, I generally recommend people try a different way.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. Next topic. Transferring balances on credit cards for lowest interest rates. Perspective on that.
Okay. So it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it can end up horrendously against you because it's not a debt. A lot of people think I'm paying off my debts. You're not. You're just shuffling your debt.
Right.
I call it the debt shuffle.
Yeah.
Same thing with a debt consolidation loan. You're just moving your debt from this account to that account. And if you don't focus on paying down the debts after that, it does you no good. Oh, I have 0% interest. Well, what do you think the majority of people do when they all of a sudden realize that they have zero interest and a bunch of extra credit cards that have zero balances?
They spend.
Yeah. It's been probably 15 years since I saw it, but there was I think it was an American Express study I saw that showed that upwards of about 70% of people who did that would take their other credit cards and run their balances right back up to the original amount.
Yeah.
So basically you're doubling the amount of debt you have.
That's probably why I love doing it. And I heard there's also a fee to do that too. Isn't there like a transfer fee? So not only, it's not 0%, even though it says 0%, but there's a fee on top of that. So really you're charging yourself to do that.
Yeah. You used to be able to, back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, you used to be able to transfer money at no fee to zero and no interest. But they started charging fees, and so that's usually 3 to 5%, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. And it's usually, if you're good, if you're disciplined, then you're going to save money at 0%, even with that 3% transfer. If you can just keep your spending in check. So I tell people, it's treating the symptom. Make sure that you treat the cause after you start treating the symptom. Make sure that if you're an overspender, that you can rein that spending in. If it was a ongoing medical thing, maybe that's not be the right answer. It's just moving it or pushing it down the road.
Really good point. Okay, I have one more for you before we go on to our next topic. So the next question is, do you think that people should fall into the let me take advantage of this credit card promotion and get a new credit card so that I can get XYZ thing free? So for example, when people are flying on the airplanes, they always have those fill out the American Airlines or whatever credit card application to get 100,000 free miles after you spend $5,000. Are those a good deal or not?
I'm going to bring up the discipline aspect again. Most of those reward cards, not all, but those that have rewards worth really focusing on, will have an annual fee, and a lot of them will give you a first year free, which that's great. But if you don't put that in your in your calendar and a reminder to cancel it or to take advantage of it. There's a reason why they give those. They are giving those rewards away. It's as much as we'd like to think that they are just being kind and being a generous company. They absolutely know that by offering rewards, they're going to get more people to sign up who are going to carry balances and pay fees.
Yep.
Right.
So on balance, it's in the credit card company's favor. If you're disciplined and you are focused, most of those reward cards, you need to just pick one or two and just focus on that one or two. That the shotgun approach doesn't really end up all that great. And so, if you're interested in something like that, there's usually a company or there's a lot of blogs. Like the Points guy, met him last year at a conference, and he has some great information on how to take advantage of rewards. But unless you're disciplined, unless you have a plan, it's usually going to backfire.
So, Todd, what would be a good kind of, if you're looking for a credit card to get? I know there's all kinds of credit cards. There's different types. Like, I don't know, like what would be good pointers, good things to look for when you're trying to get your first credit card or a credit card?
Yeah. So one of the things that I recommend is don't shop by interest rate. One, that tells me something. If somebody comes and says, well, this one only has a 12% interest. Okay, well, how much debt are you planning on carrying? Because as long as it has a grace period, then you're not going to pay any interest, no matter what the interest rate.
Ooh.
So shop for the credit card that has the lowest fees or no fees, ideally. And then keep in mind that credit cards, this is another kind of a change of mentality, mindset change. Don't see your credit card as something for emergencies. That's not what credit cards were not meant for emergencies.
They're not? That's what all I think about them is that. Oh no! So what? So it's not emergencies.
Because so emergencies. What's the point? What are you supposed to have for emergencies? Emergency savings. That's the purpose of. That's what we use for emergencies. Because if we say I'm just going to get it for emergencies, okay, take me back to college again. It's a week and a half till payday. I got no money left in my account, but I got a credit card, and my friends come knocking. Hey, let's go to a movie. Let's go do this. Let's go do that.
Emergency. That's
social
an emergency,
right? Yeah, exactly. Because our definition of emergency changes. So
right.
I suggest looking for cards that have no fees and that fit your what you're needing. You don't need necessarily a card. If you know, or if you haven't thought about it, do you have the discipline to use a card? There's basically 4 questions to ask before you should even get your first credit card. One, do you have income? If you don't have income, you really have no business having a credit card in your own name. Can you get one? Yeah, that's the crazy thing. But if you don't have steady income for, I'd say like 6 months or more, probably shouldn't be using a credit card. Are you planning your spending? So do you have a budget? Have you been living by a budget? Do you know what you can afford to spend for 6 months or more? Are you using a debit card without having it declined? Then maybe for 6 months or more, then maybe you're ready for a credit card. Because if you're getting declined credit or debit cards, what it means is that you are you don't know how much you are supposed to be spending. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is, do you have a savings fund put together? Because if you don't have a savings fund and you're starting to use a credit card, the chances of you ever having a savings fund have gone down to almost zero. You're going to join the 80% of American workers who live paycheck to paycheck and do not build savings at all. So those are the 4 things. Then you can start looking around. Okay, now if I've been doing this, I should be able to be prepared to use a credit card and avoid fees and interest.
It's a really good point. Now, Todd, I want to pick your brain about a little bit of topic that seems a bit obscure to me. So I was reading about Money Fit by DRS, the 501c3 that you work for. And what I couldn't figure out is what makes your organization different than the companies that I see on late night infomercials that talk about, we'll help you consolidate your debt. Because as I was raised, my parents always told me, don't go to one of those companies. It's a scam. It's going to end up killing your credit, and you're going to end up just owing money to that organization instead. So how are you different, or are you different?
Yeah, we are. And bless your mom and dad for telling you that. So the confusion comes from the fact that anybody can call themselves a debt counselor. Anybody who's working with debt, a consumer's debt, I'm a debt counselor, whatever, right? So those companies that you're talking about are debt settlement companies that say, send a letter to your creditors telling them not to contact you anymore, because it's true by law. Once you send a letter to a creditor and say, don't contact me anymore, they can't. But the only way they can get in touch with you is through the courts, which often they do, and take you to court and win a judgment and garnish your wages. So that's debt settlement, where they promise we can get you out of 50% of what you. That's a classic statement, by the way. They'll usually cite whoever the newest president is, that they've just signed a bill and that you don't have to pay your credit card debt. So call us and we'll get you out.
Oh my gosh, scam. You sounded just like it. Like you just, that's the commercial. The voice of Todd. Go ahead.
That's right. And but that is exactly what they do. And most of those are going to leave you worse than you were before. There are some debt settlement companies that are legitimate. Usually they're small. The ones that I would recommend you work with somebody who's small and local, works at an attorney that does that. Some of these big places, I'm just not a huge fan of them, because you owe what? I mean, if you were a credit card company, if I owed you guys $10,000 credit card debt, and I just sent you a letter saying, don't contact me anymore, how happy are you going to be?
Very upset.
I'd be mad you weren't paying me.
Right. And so what are you going to do? Well, okay, what are my options? I'm going to sell this to a collection agency for $3,000 and take a $7,000 hit. No, I don't want to do that. Let's pay an attorney $2,000 or $3,000 to file something in court, and then we'll start garnishing your wages because you ticked us off so much, we're willing to do that.
They can do that? They can garnish your wages?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How?
If they get a judgment in court, win a judgment in court against you, and they will, if you owe them money, you'll get a summons, and if you don't show up, they win automatically. It's a default judgment.
Now, is that for every single state, or is it only certain states?
I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer that exactly, but I don't know of states. I'm not aware of states where they can't do that.
Oh, okay. I know that when it comes to credit, there are different rules for different states.
Yeah.
You see in the little fine print and stuff. So I didn't know that California this and New York that. So I was just wondering if they can do that here. I was kind of worried now.
Yeah, no. So that's always a concern. So where let's see, what was the original question? I got off on my tangent.
So the question was on those. What makes you different at Money Fit by DRS versus those debt consolidation loan places? Right.
So Money Fit by DRS is a nonprofit consumer credit counseling agency. So our clients through a consumer credit counseling agency like ours will pay 100% of what they owe. The agency works with the creditors to establish a new agreement rather than a adversarial approach, which is the debt settlement, which we're going to force them to accept this. It's a partnership approach where the creditors already have these kind of plans available if the consumer needs them, where the interest rates will we work on interest rates. So the interest rates are down to 0% or 2 or 5 or 8%. So that's a huge deal when somebody's got that 18, 25, 30%. I've seen default interest rates, and you guys know that default is code for penalty. Mm-hmm. You miss a payment and your interest rate shoots up. I've seen default rates as high as 60 and 70% on credit cards. Those are not payday loans; those are credit cards.
What?
They're usually cards that are targeting high risk borrowers, consumers. But somebody's got a 20, 30, 40% interest rate, and all of a sudden now they can pay it off at 2% or 5%. That's a big deal. And their monthly payment goes way down, and they're out of debt in 5 years or less, no prepayment penalty. They've got a partner in the whole process to step them through. There's no direct effect on the FICO credit score. There are some fees, but they're capped by every state. They're very reasonable. And even with those fees, the monthly payment typically goes way down.
So then are you, Todd, able to support individuals from any state that contact you? Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
We do. We for the last three years or so, we've been registered to do this kind of work in every single state and DC. There are limitations to the types of debt. We can't work with secured debts, so mortgages, car loans, RV loans.
Interesting. So it's got to be credit card debt.
Yeah, it's got to be an unsecured. So credit card, collections accounts, medical debts, old utility bills, old cell phone bills. School loans also, if they're generally, because there are some unique laws that pertain to student loan debt that we by regulation, we can't work with those either. It's not that we don't want to. We do have some student loan counseling services, but student loans have been the things have been changing so much with student loan debt over the last 5-10 years, and even in the last couple of years that it's challenging to get to do much within that.
It's challenging to pay them back too. Let me tell you.
Yeah, tell me about it. My goodness.
Dr. Kristine over here living the life of the school loans. Yep.
Yeah, and you're on that, the 10-year debt or debt forgiveness track as a teacher, right?
Well, I'm hoping so. So there's the new provisions that came out that I need to apply for because I'm just entering repayment now. I just graduated and I just entered repayment this month, actually. And so I got
congratulations.
I got that first notice from, earning my doctorate from USC. And it's like, ouch, okay, I could do this, gotta figure this out.
Yep.
Just tighten up the belt and, get at it. But it's a lot. And just thinking, like you said, about being an American and trying to chase the American dream comes with a price tag. And if you're not careful, that price tag can leave your bank account overdrawn, literally, and impact you for the rest of your life. So now on that note, Todd, for our listeners, because we have them from all over the country, all over the world that are listening in and they're thinking, goodness, I could really use some of these strategies and figuring out how to get control of my finances and get out of debt because it just feels yucky. How can they reach out to you at MoneyFit by DRS?
Sure. So MoneyFit, we have, of course, our website, moneyfit.org. That's probably the simplest way. They can call us 800-432-0310 and talk directly. Just get a hold of one of our counselors. And basically what we do is we go through your household finances. We ask, okay, what are the debts you're dealing with? What's your income? What are your monthly expenses? So that we have a broad view anyway of what's possible, and because not everybody qualifies. I mean, if you are making, you have $1,000 a month that you're paying in debts, and you're making so much money that you could easily afford $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, the creditors are not going to look happily on that and say, you can pay it with the original interest rate. But most people are going to be that contact us are going to be in that point where they're like, I'm just, I'm not sure how long this can last, or I'm already in trouble. And then it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days to get those agreements in place. They're making payments to the creditors in the meantime, and so that it doesn't go late. And we just step them through, one step at a time, make sure that they can get on this program and be. It's a huge relief when somebody finally realizes, okay, I've always wondered if I'm doing the right thing, and then to have somebody, a professional, finally step in and say, okay, this is how you're set up now, And to have that kind of validation that, okay, I'm taking a good step toward getting out of debt and getting my life back.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for the insight that you've provided. And I would say that you've broken down some of the myths of finances for us in terms of demystifying or kind of breaking that code of what it takes to actually make your way to financial freedom and solid credit. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of all of our listeners. I know that Kris and I are going to have a lot to talk about after this, just because you've provided some really interesting points that I think will help us as we're educating our boys.
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Hey there, K2 crew. We love having you as our loyal listeners.
To keep up to date with what's happening behind the scenes, check us out on social media.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter.
And don't forget to follow our Facebook page.
Yeah, tag us in your favorite fun stories, and guess what? You might just end up on the show.
Ooh.
You know, I think Todd was fantastic. Talking about credit cards and spending and all the stuff you probably should already know, but people always seem to not really care about that much. You know, they rack stuff up all the time. You know how it is.
Absolutely. And I loved when we were able to talk with him about like some of those common things that you see on TV, like the payday loans and the rent-to-own furniture and that kind of stuff, and get his perspective on it. Because, you know, one of the things about money is some people don't get the opportunity to learn about it in school. Like, it's not something that is always taught very frequently. And so when we think of like money management, being able to learn money management is a tool for getting out of poverty. And so helping to educate people about what is and isn't a good investment, I think, is really helpful.
That's true. And you know that a lot of people do. They always try to like spend with above their means, and they try to. It's almost like it's sad to see this, but a lot of the middle class, I would say,
try to keep up.
Yeah, they're the ones that really are the ones always in debt, or they're always trying to like buy more than they can afford. And credit,
right.
It seems like credit lenders and credit card companies seem to really target that group of individuals. They don't seem to waste their time too much with the really poor people or the really high people that much. They do a little bit, but not as much, I would think, because those people, the high end, they just buy things in cash if they can, and the low end, their credit is so bad they can't, even afford anything. So
I just think that money is just something that we definitely need to be more open and having conversations about in relationships and asking for help to become more educated. I know that, coming out of my first marriage, I really felt like I didn't have a strong grasp of money management, and I spent a lot of time and energy on figuring out my finances, getting my credit in order, establishing a savings, all of that. And I would say it's definitely been an adjustment now that we're a family of 5, figuring out how to adjust my finances to account for that. Because you got to remember, like, I was a single mom taking care of myself and my son, and now it's like providing for a family of 5.
But you're so good at it, though, baby.
Well, thanks. I work around the clock to be able to do it.
You do. You're amazing. And I'm still like trying to figure stuff out myself, like I've always been a single dad myself, father of 2. So it was myself and the 2 kids. What do we need to do? And then I only had them half the time. My ex-wife had them the other half of the time. So it was like, how do I figure out myself plus my time with my kids? Now it's
like
you and
finances and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's definitely a new learning journey. But, I think that having Todd on the show is really helpful. I'm going to listen back to this episode a couple of times and just listen to his insight. I think it has some good little truth nuggets for us. And where else can our listeners find more of our episodes or hear us on the replay?
You always can go to our website, which is krisandkristineshow.com. And on that website, we have, of course, the podcast and podcast stuff, all kinds of little banners you can click on. So you like Spotify, got one for that, Apple, so on and so forth. Also, we have Kristine Smith Designs, her very own link to her website right on there.
Absolutely. And don't forget to check out Live 365 and the new K2 radio station. Tune in. You'll hear snippets of lots of different past versions of our podcast episodes and great music, and you can just tune in and let Kris keep you company all day long.
That's right. It's running 24/7, baby doll.
I don't know if I can handle that. I mean, you're a lot.
The handle 24/7, Kris?
24/7, Kris. No, if you ever wanted a little bit of happy in your life, definitely tune in to K2 Radio on Live 365, because Kris has a way of just lifting everybody's spirit.
I sure do, baby, don't I?
Well, thanks so much for being here with us, and we'll be back with you next week.